Thanks so much for joining me today, Zen. It's really great to have you here. Do you have any starting remarks before I start asking you questions?
No, I really appreciate the invitation, and Ron. Excited to be chatting with you today.
Yeah, great to be with you too. So first, I just want to ask, could you please tell us a bit about your background, like what inspired you to start Transcripts, and how did the idea first come about?
Yeah, so my name is Zain. I'm 25 years old. I am the co-founder and CEO of TransCrypts. Created TransCrypts actually about 5 years ago now. We created in September 2020 was our incorporation, and I was a student at San Jose State University. I had just finished my undergraduate degree I have a bachelor's in science and electrical and electronics engineering from SJSU, and was applying to grad school at City. And Harvard wanted to verify my undergraduate transcripts to make sure that the grades that I had stated was correct and accurate. So I went in and had SJSU send over my official transcript, or at least I thought they did. Turns out there was a mix-up at the registrar's office. They never got around to sending over my official transcript, and Harvard never ended up receiving it. So in the middle of the summer, I received this big, bold red email saying that your offer of admissions is in jeopardy because Harvard wanted to verify that the grades I had stated on my application matched the grades on my official transcript. I was able to get that resolved. Luckily, I had some sort of proof with that, verifying that I had sent this information on time. But it got me thinking, we as individuals don't own our verified credentials. Today we're reliant on other people to attest and verify who we are. I think that's an outdated way of thinking. I think technology enables us to self-attest in a verifiable, immutable, and fraud-proof way who we are and what our credentials are.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, it's cool to see that your business idea basically came from personal experience. You see that a lot around a lot as well. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting. One thing as
Um,
well is that also.
yeah, exactly. And I thought that'd be kind of interesting for your audience as well as, I wasn't old when I started this business. Like I was, I was 20 years old. I had just turned, or I mean, I was, not even like couldn't rent a car, for example, or couldn't do a lot of things that adults could do. I couldn't go to many places because I wasn't 21, right? So I was like, I was still very young. And yeah, I found that quite, I like to encourage people like, age is not a factor when you create a business.
Yeah, it's really good, especially for our target audience of high school students. I know a lot of people they're scared about starting young, but one thing that my dad tells me a lot as well is that when you're young, you have a lot less to lose. So, it's never really a bad idea if you think, oh, I'm not experienced enough, I have to wait a bit longer.
Exactly, man. Like when else are you gonna start a company? Like when like I talk to people, they're cracked engineers, they're cracked, founders, they're cracked marketing people, but they're 40 years old, they have three kids and a mortgage and a car payment. It's extremely hard to start a business and like let go of that, you know, high paying job at Google, for example, or that relatively that cushion, because quite frankly, if you mess up, your family might quite live in the street. So the calculus is a lot different there. So you get a lot of these people stuck in these golden handcuffs. Um, so I mean, not that people don't create companies when they're, in a later age, but I do think that from a risk perspective, when you're young, you can afford to take a lot more risks.
Yeah, it's definitely more logical. I mean, I'd say, like you said, it doesn't mean that when you're old, you just can't start a business. It's almost impossible, but it's definitely true that the stakes are much lower when you're younger. And then also, generally speaking, just logically speaking, it makes more sense. And then also, people say, oh, well, I want more experience as well. But in this day and age, with the internet and everything, generally speaking, it's just way easier to get experience or just get the knowledge at the very least that you would need to start a business. So I feel like that's not a valid excuse as well. So it really just
Yeah,
makes more sense.
I agree. Like I think where there's a will, there's a way, right? I mean, we all have seen those 20, 21, 22 year olds driving around those Lamborghinis and apparently having very successful business. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I see it on social media every now and then. I'm not sure what the backstories behind a lot of those things are. But what I will say is that, technology is a great equalizer, right? Anyone of any age can really create a business. From a risk perspective, though, when you're young, it's a lot easier to take those risks and to be a lot because you have the advantage of not having any or as many financial responsibilities as you would in your middle age or elder years.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also going back to what you were saying, I know you're talking about how your experience when transferring from SJ to Harvard was basically what inspired you to start transcripts. But talking a bit about that transfer process in the first place, I know a lot of students right now, they're high school students will be listening to this. So, maybe they're thinking about going straight to some a prestigious private institution, or some are even thinking of transferring from a community college or a state school like you to one of those big private institutions that will hopefully set them up for success later. So, what was your experience like besides the whole,
Yeah.
transcript part?
So I didn't transfer from SJSU to Harvard. I graduated from SJSU and I applied for grad school at Harvard. But I have experience, transferring as well. So a little bit about my own academic history. I started taking college classes when I was 13 years old. I went to a school called Gilroy Early College Academy. It's in Gilroy, California. And the Early College Academy part is their whole philosophy was when you're a ninth grader, starting when you're a ninth grader, you start taking college classes. So I was taking, for example, my electives at Gavilan College in Gilroy, which was a community college down there, and and then from there I progressed into taking pre-calculus at the community college and calculus in the community college. So by the time I finished high school, I had probably well over 15, 16 community college classes done, which was a huge advantage. So I've experienced the community college system through that lens. Um, and then right out of high school, actually, I attended the University of California, San Diego, um, for my freshman year of college, and actually transferred from UC San Diego to San Jose State. I had to do so because family obligations required me to come back home to the Bay Area where I live. But so I have experience, at the community college level. I have experience at the UC level. The UC being the public institution system here in California, as well as state schools. And then, of course, now having gone to grad school at a private school, so I've seen it all. And what I will say at the end of the day is, I would put less emphasis on where you go to college. I think the classes are all the same. There was calculus at Harvard is no different than calculus at community college. I think that there's probably a greater disparity between the professors in terms of like if you have a good professor at community college versus a bad professor at Harvard, you'll probably learn more with the good professor at community college than you would at the bad professor at Harvard. What I will say though is what you do in college is extremely important. So aside from this, the coursework, the kids who go out and do that extracurriculars, go out and really learn how to think and build those skills that really carry on in adult life and professional life. That's extremely important. So my advice to your audience would be, I know when you're in 12th grade, especially, you're, oh man, you're looking at those college rankings. I want to get into that, tier one college. Uh, Unfortunately, I don't think that'll make a huge difference in the outcomes of your life as much as what you do in college. I think, I created this, today I have a $100 million business because I graduated from a state school, right? And there's people who graduated from Stanford who are probably currently unemployed. So, it's possible to achieve great outcomes, even going to quote unquote less prestigious schools.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. Well, the thing about how classes at both community colleges or state schools, or even like top universities like Harvard or Stanford, for example, they're generally the same. But one thing I have heard is that the basically the benefit of going to a very prestigious school like Stanford or Harvard, for example, is more about the network of people you get from going to those schools, for example. So those professors are usually of some of the, even if they in the classes they teach, you generally gain the same knowledge as somewhere else, as anywhere else really, but you still had those connections to people who have achieved much more in their career sometimes, or for example have that prestige where now that they're in your network, you can basically gain more, for example, when it comes to a job or when it comes to businesses and getting funding. So would you agree with that as well, that maybe even if going to a state school and like what you do basically might matter more in general, or basically
Yeah,
with all that?
there's no doubt that the Ivy Leagues have a network about them, right? That's probably why they're prestigious, right? Your classmates are either going to be extremely talented individuals and the reasons why they got into that university, or come from extremely privileged backgrounds, right? Parents who, legacy students, and people who, either way, I mean, they're great people to know because either their parents are really connected or they themselves will become extremely successful individuals probably later down the road. And that's literally the bet that Harvard or Stanford or any of the large institutions take, even some of the great public institutions like Georgia Tech, UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC San Diego. That's the bet they're taking on there when they admit a students that you will go become someone extremely prominent and successful and ultimately help further the brand and the image of the university, as well as obviously then give back as an alumni. There's no doubt about
Mm.
that. But I again think this matters less nowadays than ever before. I think we live in a digital era where it's where someone who has a grinding mentality can build those networks without having gone to those schools. Like for example, like I built my network kind of outside of Harvard. Like, you know, I quite literally cold emailed Mark Cuban, and that's how I got him to invest in my business. Right? I didn't use the fact that like I went to state school as an excuse to, oh, I don't have connected with the top people. Now in the Bay Area, like I'm connected with a lot of really, really talented people. Probably connected with people that even, you know, most people who graduated from top universities are not connected. I'm top connected to the, you know, some of the top technologists, some of the top venture capitalist people, right? Because ultimately they don't care that I didn't go to Stanford or Harvard. They are on my network because they view me as a equal in because of what I've accomplished through the company. So, you know, obviously these schools have a great network, but I think it's becoming less important, even those network effects, because you can build those network effects outside of those institutions by just being a person who goes out and, you know, it takes a little bit more work, but you can definitely do it.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting basically perspective because I've seen a lot like online a lot, especially from students who go to prestigious schools. They basically say, "Oh, the reason I went here is just because I just know that the network is going to be better. It's not necessarily the education, but like you just said, and this kind of ties back to what I was saying as well about how the internet gives a lot of basically free information that you don't really need to even go to, for example, a college or even high school information anymore. You can just get it online, and so it kind of just shows how as there still are benefits to going to prestigious universities, obviously, but in the end, it's just it matters less and less nowadays. And as the years go by, it's probably going to matter less even more. And so,
Yeah.
I guess kind of circling back to what we were talking about transcripts. My next question is basically, why would you use blockchain for verification, and what problem does it specifically solve? So I know you've already talked a bit about this before, but maybe expand on it. And one other thing I'd like to add is that me personally, I really don't know that much about blockchain, and I don't know if our viewers will know that much as well. So try to explain it in a way where maybe we can all still understand it without going into the technical details too
Yeah.
technical.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think let's start with what blockchain is. What do you think blockchain is? Maybe we'll start with that.
Well, from what I've heard, really, I know usually it's with cryptocurrency. Well, blockchain to me is very synonymous or very similar to, for example, cryptocurrencies or NFTs when those were very popular. So I kind of just see it as this way to. I don't exactly know the technical details, like I said, but I see it as this way to basically make the transactions between, for example, cryptocurrency wallets. That's what I think of, basically more secure. That's basically what I think of when I think of blockchain.
And why do you think cryptocurrencies use blockchain to make transactions?
But like I said before, it makes it more secure. At least that's what I think right now. That's what I know. So
Yeah.
but
So
generally speaking,
I,
it's very
I
important.
I think you have a fairly decent understanding of what blockchain is. So a blockchain is an immutable database. A database is where you store data, right? An immutable and decentralized database. Blockchains don't always have to be decentralized, but they are immutable in the sense that by being decentralized, they are immutable because they're stored. So, like a traditionally database is stored in a server, right? So, you know, I don't know how much coding experience or coding knowledge your audience has, but a server being a large computer, as to put in the simplest words. A decentralized database, in this case, would be a database that's stored over many large computers or many different servers or nodes, as we call them in the Web3 space. Why this becomes more secure than storing it in one location and more trusted than storing it in one location is that if I, for example, if you go on your computer right now and you change a file's name, the file's name is changed in your computer. But if that file name the only way the file name can be changed is if 500 computers say that this file name can be changed, or 501 computers have to say this file name has to be changed out of 1,000 computers that host this database. Um, that's just makes it much more makes it more immutable because you can't alter one thing. If you even if you alter one of these computers, because there's 1,000 total nodes in this blockchain network, it won't alter the underlying record in the database. That's what makes blockchain more secure. And because it's public, most blockchains are public facing. There's an auditable layer. So every single transaction on a blockchain is forever publicly viewable by all the participants on that chain. So you always know what happened to stuff. There's nothing kept in the dark. So that's why cryptocurrencies are stored and use blockchain as a like the main way that they transact and to store and record ledger values because not only can no individual person go in and alter the blockchain record, but on top of that, they because it's decentrally stored, you can't no one party can also take someone else's or lie and manipulate the numbers and values. So that's the same reason why TransCrypts uses blockchain. We want people to own their verified credentials, but we want them to own in a way where the individual can also alter their credential. An individual has the incentive to lie about their information. For example, like if I have a 3.0 GPA, I have the incentive to lie about that I have a 4.0 GPA. Why? Because if I say I have a 4.0 GPA, I might get into a better school, for example, right, or get a better job. So how do we prevent that individual from lying? Right? So if I give you access to your official transcript, how do I prevent the individual from being able to go in and alter the state of that transcript? Well, there's two ways. The first way is you can store it on a centralized database. The issue with the centralized database is it creates ultimately whoever owns that centralized database can manipulate the values and can do whatever they want with that data. The second way is if you really want to ensure that the person actually owns, the individual actually owns that data, and it's still um, immutable in nature, you can use a blockchain. And that way, because no one owns that data because it's stored decentrally, because no one owns it, theoretically you as the individual own it, because no centralized entity owns it. And because it's decentralized and because it's immutable, and no, you as an individual can also commit fraud and change your records either. And there's an auditable trail showing the transaction history of that record, so you know exactly who issued that record to whom, when it was issued, and all the other underlying metadata. If that makes sense. I don't know if I rambled a little too much there.
No, that was good. That generally made sense. Yeah, I mean, that's good. That's good. But the one thing I do want to say is that I think people kind of, like I said before, they say that blockchain it's kind of synonymous in their heads with cryptocurrency and NFTs and all these other things that were majorly popular, like maybe around quarantine 2021, 2022. And now people have kind of seen that they've fallen off or gone less popular. So what would you say about that? Do you still think that blockchain has a big purpose in the modern day?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a if you judge blockchain based on if you judge an underlying technology based on its use cases. So like crypto and NFT, it's very fair to judge an underlying technology based on its use cases, right? So obviously, blockchain's main use case has historically been cryptocurrencies and NFT. That's at least what the retail world knows it as. But it's always had a very large and prominent history in other applications as well. Transcripts, for example, were neither a cryptocurrency nor do we merely, sell NFTs. You could argue our credentials are an NFT of sort, but they're not the NFT that your user would be your audience are probably very familiar with and associated with. We're not like some Bored Apes NFT. Um, so I would actually argue that like blockchain is more popular than ever now. It's actually having the most usage that it ever has. I mean, if you look at cryptocurrencies as a whole, their usage numbers are way up since the pandemic. So blockchain has its real use cases. It also has a lot of scams on it, and a lot of people use blockchains for scams, but people use AI for scams as well. That doesn't discredit AI as a technology. So I think you should judge blockchain for its merits and not necessarily for how people use it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I've seen so many people, especially in the past few years, talking down about cryptocurrency and NFTs, but that's also led to them just talking about blockchain in general and saying how it's basically fallen off and AI is replacing everything and talking more about AI. But I feel like exactly what you said in the end, it's less about, what the tools have been used for, and it's more about what the tool can be used for what. potential it has. So I definitely start
Yeah,
talking down on
I
blockchain.
think there are also two different technologies, right? So like AI is replacing human intelligence and human work. Blockchain is replacing the need for the need to trust centralized authorities. So it's in removing the need to trust a government. It's removing the need to trust a bank. It's removing the need to trust the US dollar in some of the cryptocurrencies use case. So it's removing the need to trust a centralized exchange for, tokenized stocks. So blockchain is removing the need to trust a centralized entity, in my opinion. So it serves a fundamentally different purpose than AI. But I think blockchain and AI will be forever interlinked because AI is going to further blur the lines between what's real and what's fake. And blockchain will have an extremely important role in helping discern what is real and what is fake because the consensus of what humanity determines to be real can be judged and measured using a blockchain consensus method. And you can use that blockchain consensus method to help guide AI into discernible from what is AI generated content and from what is actually, from what is actually reality.
Yeah, I think that's a great connection. I mean, in the end, this is a podcast for an AI network, so getting the perspective of blockchain in AI is very good as well. But in general, one of the biggest reasons why I have you here right now is that even though this is an AI podcast, it's still great to just get the perspective of someone who uses a fundamentally different tool, and then also just generally speaking, I'm assuming you use AI in your business some places, right? I'm assuming.
100%.
Yeah, so generally speaking, of course, you always basically everyone nowadays they have experience with AI, so it's good to get that perspective. But also just knowing about blockchain and how other fields like blockchain basically intertwine with AI and how they can be used in business. That's one of the biggest reasons why I made this podcast. So it's really great to get that perspective. And so now I just wanted to ask, what was the toughest technical or go-to market challenge that you had when you create transcripts, and how did you solve it?
I've had infinite challenges. I think what was the toughest thing is going through one challenge and finding yourself in another challenge, and then going from that challenge and finding yourself in another challenge, and doing that for 5 years straight. There's been so many challenges, man. I wouldn't I'm not going to choose one. What I will say is that the toughest thing as an entrepreneur has been, and from both the technical perspective, from a go-to-market perspective, has been, you spend sometimes weeks solving one particular issue. You solve that issue, you get like a day off, and then you have to go solve another issue, and that's just the forward progress of your business.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely one of the things about being an entrepreneur as well. A lot of people basically just say, being an entrepreneur, it's really great because you get to be your own boss, and not ruled by other people. But in the end, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, there really are many challenges you have. There's going to be days where you're working for hours upon hours. And, there's not really, you can't really take that many breaks in between because there's always a new problem, like you said, that you have to solve. So I think
Yep,
that's definitely a good perspective. And so, looking back, do you think there were any early decisions that had a really big positive impact? And you can just talk about one specific decision you made that, in the end, basically made your business flourish into what it is today.
I created a business. That was the best decision I could have made.
Wow.
That's literally it. I think a lot of people stop at that a lot of people don't even make that decision. So, I think there's all these talks about, you know, what was the best decision that an entrepreneur creates. And I think at the end of the day, you can boil it down to an entrepreneur's best decision was a decision to create the business, or else they wouldn't be an entrepreneur, they'd be someone else. So yeah, I can tell you for a fact, Mark Zuckerberg's probably best decision that he made was starting Facebook. I can tell you for a fact that Steve Jobs' best decision that he ever made as an entrepreneur was starting Apple, right? So these are all like I think the best decision that any entrepreneur can make or any wannabe entrepreneur can make is starting a business because 99% of people don't take that step, and that's what's the difference between an entrepreneur and someone who isn't an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good answer. I don't even have much to say, but I guess additionally speaking, it's not just about creating the business, it's actually working to make sure, working hard, working smart, making sure that your business actually goes well. I know a lot of people, especially I think in the Bay Area, we have this thing where people in this sort of uh basically race to get into college, this competition where like, oh, I really want to go to Stanford, I really want to go to Harvard. What they'll end up doing is that they'll create this business, they'll create this nonprofit, but what'll end up happening is they just do it for show, and then it'll end up not being that successful. Or even if it ends up being successful, they never really cared about the problem in the first place. They never cared about the business in the first place. And so then, as soon as they apply to colleges and whether they get in or not, they'll just end up throwing away the idea and never really looking at it again. So, I
Those
guess
people
that is to
are
say that.
those people are really freaking stupid. Because I would rather have a awesome business that's, you know, building something cool in this world and probably making me a ton of money than a Harvard or Stanford diploma. Those diplomas, people get those diplomas to create awesome nonprofits and to create awesome businesses. Uh, if you have the opportunity to create a business and you do it just to get into Stanford or Harvard, then you're doing things really backwards, and probably you're probably really dumb, and you probably shouldn't go to schools in the first place. Because I can't think of a more like that's like I don't know, that's like doing things so backwards in my opinion, right? Like, um, so yeah, my advice to those people would be like, dude, like, don't even bother. Like, if you're trying to like hack your way into all these schools, like, even if you succeed at that, like, what are you going to become? Like, you're probably not going to amount to much in terms of success because you're you're not thinking about things the right way. You should think about value creation and not just hacking an application. Um, so I think if you have a value creation mindset, even if you don't get into Stanford or Harvard, you'll at least have an awesome thing that's incredibly valuable. That's probably increasing your quality of life instrumentally more than getting into Stanford or Harvard. And let me tell you something, as a Harvard student, as someone who's going to graduate with his master's next semester, um, there's a lot of miserable people at Harvard, man. So, like, I don't think that's the end goal.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think especially in the environment I've grown up in, especially with what I've seen online, what I've seen around me, especially since when I've gone to high school, it's mostly just this competition of I want to get into this school so I can create a business, but it's never really like the other way around. Or maybe we even just take college out in the entirely. And it's really just, can I create this business? Can I find a problem that I really want to solve, that I have the passion to solve? Can I find people to help me solve this problem who have the skills that complement my skills that can help me solve this problem? And can I really just do like something that fulfills my life's purpose or what I want to do? And so I think this sort of being blinded, having your goal be basically being blinded by just this expectation that you need to go to a college, you need to go to a prestigious college is definitely something that I think a lot of people my age should be trying to go away from. Just this mindset of college is the most important.
Yeah, I uh, I agree. I think also the reasons why you go to college really matter. I think a lot of people try to go to college because they want to use that diploma and that name to turn it into a career or turn it into something else. My my mentality is you should go to college to learn how to learn. Um, I think that's ultimately the most important thing that you can do in your whole life. If you learn how to learn, and I mean truly learn, right? People always wonder like why can Elon run a like a rocket company and a electric car companies because he knows how to learn. He knows how to learn different things. I'll say like what's helped me a lot in my career, being a 20-year-old with no experience creating a company. By the way, college doesn't tell you anything about how to create a company. I studied engineering. Nothing, I didn't take, there was no course in my engineering thing, how to create a company. But what helped me was that I was always a curious learner and I really learned how to learn. So when I needed to learn how to do marketing and sales and fundraising and this and that, I knew how to do it because I knew how to learn.
Yeah, what you brought up as well, right over there, where like you were an electrical engineering major, or you are still also getting your master's degree right now, but you never really took like a business course in your college that taught you everything. So, would you generally say that obviously having technical skills is very important in making a business, but would you say that soft skills maybe are even more important than technical skills when it comes to creating a successful business?
Depends on your role, depends on your business. If you're creating a rocket company, you probably need a lot of technical skills, right? Because it's a very technical job. Um, it also depends on your role. Like if you can create a company but be the CTO versus a CEO, right? The CTO, Chief Technology Officer, Chief Technical Officer, needs a lot of, I mean, their role is just purely technological. They don't need to know how to do accounting. They need to know everything about the technology that powers their business. But as a CEO, you can probably get away with a little less technical skills. But I think it's still very important to be technically gifted. But this is again just in the realm of tech companies. I mean, you could be the CEO of a grocery store. Do you need a lot of technical skills there? Probably not. So I think it just depends on the company that you create. Learning how to do business, I guess again, if you know how to learn, you'll learn how to do business. because business is all about learning from mistakes, either mistakes that you make or mistakes that others make, and learning about what works and what doesn't work. And the quicker that you know how to identify that, the more successful and faster your business will grow. And the best way to do that is just really, like, again, I think kind of emphasize this, and it kind of doesn't make sense when you first hear it, but learning how to learn and be really quick and trust your decision making and learn from your decision making is the single most important skill that a business owner can have, or one of the most important skills that a business owner can have.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Would you say like how important would you say curiosity is to creating a business? That's one thing I really want to ask because curiosity is something that I always hear around, like whether it be in school or even from my own parents. It's always curiosity is very important. It's just the idea of that creativity comes from curiosity. So, what do you think about that?
Creativity does come from curiosity. If you're not curious, how can you be creative? These two things are two sides of the same coin. So I think curiosity is one of the great attributes that one should strive for in their personality and in their life, because a non-curious life is a dull life, in my opinion. I think forget about just creating a business, about living. A person who is curious is truly alive, and a person who isn't curious is not truly alive because there's too many wonders of the world to explore and to learn about and to appreciate. And a curious person can truly appreciate them, while a non-curious person won't be able to.
That's very interesting. And one thing I also want to add is that how do you think someone can become more curious, or can someone even become more curious in the first place? Is it just about asking questions? Is curiosity a skill? What do you think about that?
And curiosity is a mindset. I don't think it's a skill. I think it's a mindset. That's shift your mindset. If you're not curious, shift your mindset. Right? Ask yourself, why am I not curious? And you'll probably have to do some soul searching, and you'll figure out the reason why. Um, Human beings are naturally born curious, so there's probably some trauma or something like that that's causing you to repress that curiosity. A lot of times from what I've heard is, a lot of people were asking a lot of questions, and then one time would ask a question and they would get shamed for asking that question, and then they stopped asking questions because they felt embarrassed. Um, Little children are curious, so like everyone is naturally born curious. So how do you just rediscover that curiosity? I think that's a mind shift change, and then that's probably, if there's a trauma factor there, then you got to address that trauma and deal with that and get over it, and then resume to being a curious person.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important, especially talking to high schoolers, basically my age. I think that a lot of people right now they can benefit from if they're still curious right now, making sure that they know that that curiosity is something that should stay. And even if someone reprimands them for asking a question, that doesn't necessarily mean that they should stop being curious. Or if they've stopped being curious because someone's already reprimanding them, then it makes more sense right now to fix that problem, to change that mindset, rather than waiting later down the line and then it's just going to be a bit too late, or at the very least, it's going to be a lot harder for you. And so now I just want to ask, how do you think people my age can get opportunities such as internships or mentorships or trying to join a research project, for example? How do you think they can get themselves these opportunities if they're passionate?
Become a person of value. I think a lot of times, like, people ask for internships. So I got internships offers. People ask me all the time, "Can you give my high school kid an internship?" The issue that I have with that is that, like, there's no value you can bring my company. I'm basically just having an extremely expensive engineer dedicate his time teaching you things. That doesn't seem like that's not a great use of, like, from a purely productive standpoint, that isn't a great use of company time. I think high school is so, but I mean, I also think there's you can have a program that's geared for that, and that's a way to give back, and that's separate. But if you really want to make sure you can get an internship, be able to make sure you can actually offer something to a company, right? I think, and also be okay working for free. So I think, like, there's a lot of people out there who are like, "Oh, I'm not going to intern if they're not going to pay me." Well, dude, if you're like a 11th grader or 12th grader, like, what can you really offer? Um, a tech startup, for example. You have no technical skills. You probably don't have a whole lot of soft skills either, right? So, like, work for free so you can learn, because, like, just like you don't, just like your school doesn't pay you for going there, don't expect the company to pay you to learn, right? I've done that a lot. Like, I've just stuck by people just to learn, and they were not paying me at all, and I was doing a lot of work just to learn, right? Because guess what? Like, I actually When you go to university, you actually have to pay for university. Here, you're getting education for free, right? And even if you have something to offer, then you can probably start asking for internship and getting paid internships and stuff. And I totally support that and should do that. But there might be other opportunities that come along that aren't paid. I would encourage you to take those. Like the best opportunities that I've ever had in my life have been opportunities to just be around smart people. They weren't even a formal positions. They weren't like someone hired me for a role. It was just like even like recently, like I still do this. Like there was this opportunity to hang out with a really successful person. I literally spent 3, 4 days just doing things for them, helping them out, and just being in their presence. And honestly, even that was just like an amazing learning opportunity. Like I would say those 3, 4 days, and it probably cost me like $1,000 or $2,000 out of my own pocket because I had to travel and this and that. I spent that money because it was an opportunity to learn from someone that I really respected and just be around them and pick their brain. And it was probably worth more than any $2,000 class I could have gotten at Harvard.
That's very interesting. And then also, this is kind of a out of the blue question because I've seen you might have seen online as well that there's some people who are making you pay to have internships. So what do you think about
That's the
opportunities
dumbest
where
thing I've
those
ever
people
heard of
would pay
that.
for them?
Dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. That's like this. I get why people do it. There's probably money to be made. It's the same like dumb idiots that are trying to like create nonprofits and businesses to get into college that probably do these pay these people to get internships. Don't do it. Like again, like I don't know why like people are so hyper fixated on these names on their diploma. And again, like I can speak from authority because I have the names on my diploma. I have a name from a community college on my diploma. I have the name of a state school on my diploma, and I'm about to get a name from probably the best university in the world on my diploma. It doesn't make a difference, dude. Like again, like like go out and anything that I honestly went to Harvard just to like make my mom happy. I can publicly attest that it has contributed very little to the overall understanding I have in this world. It has not done much. It's been great. I've loved my classes, I've loved my professors, but it hasn't. I haven't learned a whole lot more than I would have otherwise. Go get that internship, work for free. If you can't get an internship, take Khan Academy classes, learn how to code. If you're not a technical person, learn if you want to go into marketing, learn how to market, right? Take $500 that you were going to give, take the $1,000 that you were going to go give that person, open up a TikTok shop and learn how to sell t-shirts on TikTok. Even if you lose that $1,000, you'll learn a whole lot more than that paid internship. Now, yeah, you probably can't put it on your resume, but you can probably write a good essay about it. And I'll tell you something, like again, like the reviewers at big schools will appreciate that essay more. And two, even if they don't, even if you end up not getting the best school, life's all about learning. It's all about building real skills. These fluffy BS things, they don't really like, they're not going to help you with your career. They're not going to really help you with anything. Forget about them. Actually spend that time building real skills, do real things. And guess what? When you actually do those real things and you look back, you'll actually have something that you'll actually have skills and talents that people will view valuable. So that if not now, a year from now, 2 years from now, you can actually get that real internship. And then maybe you can even get that dream internship. Because when you go to that interview and people start drilling you in that interview, you'll have real experience to be able to call back from rather than like BS fluff, which I'll tell you, having done thousands of interviews, it's very easy to discern what is BS fluff and what is a person with real substance.
Yeah, I definitely agree. One thing, the reason why I asked that question in the first place is, to be fair, it was 50% a joke question, but at the same time, many people my age is like I keep going back to this point, but I'm surrounded by people who are always under this mindset. And to be honest with you, I'm sometimes under this mindset as well, where it's mostly just focused on the college. It's mostly just focused on putting these basically positions on these on your resume. Like I had an internship here, I had an internship there, and it's mostly just focused on making yourself look good while not really having the skills that what you would think you would have if you, for example, got an internship. And generally just speaking, I think it's important to just discern that in the end, what really matters is what you know and how you can apply your skills and your soft skills rather than just what's on your resume and what people might see on your LinkedIn page, for example. So that's basically just why I asked that question. But generally speaking, we are pretty close to time, so I have one more question for you, and it's what did you learn from participating in TechStars or accelerator programs, and what would you tell to a founder today who is applying to such programs?
Be very careful on which accelerator program that you apply to. Don't give away too much equity of your business. Um, there's a lot of scam accelerators out there. Since your audience is young, you probably don't even need to get applied to an accelerator. Like many universities have really good incubator programs that are 100% free that the university funds and supports. And through those incubator programs, you can probably meet talented people who can help guide you. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you're not going to go into like a top five accelerator program, I wouldn't really worry about it. Um, yeah, I think outside the top five accelerator programs, they're all kind of, a lot of them are very sketch. Either be a top
Yeah.
five accelerator program or be like an accelerator program that's extremely niche to your space, like to your industry. Like, for example, Transcripts just went to the SHRM Work Tech Accelerator program. SHRM is a Sure, Work Tech Accelerator program is probably not considered one of the top five prestigious accelerator programs, but it is probably, in my opinion, one of the best accelerator program for HR tech businesses like transcripts. So in our niche, it made a lot of sense. So that would be my 2 cents to your audience. Like either if you're going to a generalist accelerator program, don't go to anything other than the top five accelerator programs, and you can there's many lists online about that. And if you are going to a niche accelerator program, really double check, make sure the terms are not egregious, and agree to terms that make sense for you and your business.
Yeah, I guess adding on to that as well, many people around me basically they're always trying to just find people to help them with their business, and specifically they're looking for funding. So I think that advice is definitely very helpful. One thing I also just wanted to quickly ask is people my age as well. Sometimes it's a bit harder for 15, 16-year-olds to just apply to these accelerators. So would you say that it's worth, for example, emailing like you did to Mark Cuban, just cold emailing people who could be potential investors and just asking them as well, what worth do you see in doing that? And if you do see worth, how would you go about doing that if you were my age?
It depends how much you know. Um, if you know nothing and you're just like stupid, which is okay, like we were all stupid. And I don't mean stupid from like a mental capability perspective. I mean stupid from you don't know anything about your subject matter. At 20 years old, I was stupid about business because I didn't know anything about business. At 25, I'm a little less stupid, but I still consider myself stupid because when I talk to some people who are really killing it, I realize I don't know much, right? So if you don't know anything, dude, you just gotta learn. Like this is like spend some time learning. But if like let's say like you're like, dude, I have this problem. I know everything about this problem. And when I mean everything about this problem, I'm not talking about just like you talk to ChatGPT a few times. I'm talking about like you intrinsically know everything about this problem. Like you've experienced it, you feel it to the core, you understand everything about this problem. You understand the person who would buy this solution, you understand how the solution, how to build it. If you're that serious, if you're that locked in, and you've been watching videos on entrepreneurship, you know how to raise money, you can speak the lingo. Like if you don't know what a safe note is, like don't raise money because you're obviously still stupid because you that's like the most basic terminology in fundraising. If you don't know if you don't know what a cap table is and you don't know the basic lingo of how to talk to investors, you don't know what a slide deck is, you don't know how to make a slide deck, you're still stupid. Spend some time learning. But once you reach that point where you understand these various things, yeah, go out and cold email. And you might have some success getting it. The reason why Mark responded to my emails is because I wasn't stupid when I emailed him. I emailed him about something that I had spent already 2 years researching about and understanding and talking to people about and devoting every, 80, 90 hours a week. So I emailed him after like 1,000 hours of work on my point. That's why he respected me enough to respond to my email. Or else I'm sure he a lot of emails he doesn't respond to.
Yeah, I mean that's very blunt advice, but to be honest, it's very true. I think it's
It's
very
business is
important to
blunt,
make sure that
man.
you.
It isn't for people who don't like to get their feelings hurt. Because I'll tell you something, like I could be really nice to you and really nice to people and say, oh, it'll be okay. But like reality is the market doesn't care about your feelings. The market cares about money and how good you are. And the best product wins. And if you're not the best product out there, you're not going to win and you're going to lose money. And if you're going to lose money, that hurts a lot more than just some blunt advice. So that's why sometimes I can be very blunt. And so, but I'd rather you listen to blunt advice and not feel financial repercussions from it than for me to be kind and soft and for you to feel financial repercussions from it.
I mean, yeah, 1000%. In the end, it's like facts don't care about your feelings. Business doesn't care about your feelings. A lot of things don't care about your feelings. So
Exactly.
I'm with you right there. But yeah, I mean, that's basically all the time we have. Do you have any final remarks or anything?
No, man. To your audience, go be infinitely curious. If you want to create that business, create that business. This is the best time in the world to do it. If you're in the Bay Area, you live in the best place in the world to do it. You live in an era where AI is booming, and this is if you didn't know how to code, AI can help you code. You can learn how to code really easily now. This is, and if you don't want to, if your business is not coding related, it's something else, go do that too, because it's still going to be a whole lot of disruption in the next couple of years, and this is the best time in the world to create a business. And yeah, anyone of your audience members is more than feel free to please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Um, and I'm always happy to help with the disclaimer that I do give blunt advice because again, like I truly believe people who are genuine are people who care about you truly. And if I care about you truly, I care about your outcomes. And if my blunt advice helps you get those outcomes, because the reality is business is tough. And sometimes, you just, I can't sugarcoat it as much as I want to. So, I've gotten my butt kicked 100,000 times. So I'd rather prevent other people from doing the same thing. So that's why I give but I'm always here to help. And I'm really appreciate the time, Ron, and excited and honored to be on this podcast.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. I can definitely confirm that I will also be in your LinkedIn DM, so be sure to look out for that.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it, bro.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully, I'll see you around soon. And yeah, that's about it.
All right. Take care.